I'd like to thank everybody for attending the webinar. Welcome to LI9 and Red Hat's webinar presenting how Red Hat OpenShift Container Platform increases the velocity, efficiency, and scalability of IT service delivery and the deployment options around the OpenShift platform. Some administrative things. I just want to again remind everybody that we're setting all the microphones to mute so that we can ensure all background noise is eliminated. Questions, please address all questions to the chat window, and we'll be answering those questions at the end of the webinar. So I'd like to take a second to introduce myself. My name is Rob Alvarado. I'm the lead system architect with LI9 Technology Solutions. We are based out of Phoenix, Arizona. And Kent, if you can go to the next slide for me. So working with multiple clients, LI9 is providing solutions that are focused on cloud and open source enterprise solutions. Leveraging our partnerships with major providers, we specialize in driving efficiencies and reliability within these enterprise solutions. As you can see, LI9 is focused on ensuring its engineers have industry-recognized certifications and accreditations to ensure confidence with our clients, both current and new. In March of 2017, this year, LI9 was selected as a participant in Red Hat's Application Platform Partner Program. With a focus on the container platform, LI9 has received focused training, access to materials, and identified support teams to help customers with OpenShift implementations and management. IT organizations must evolve to meet organizational demands. This is driving many of the conversations we are having with our customers about DevOps and more. Many of these customers are looking to shift their development and customers are looking to shift their development and deployment processes from traditional waterfall development and agile methods to DevOps, and they want to learn how to enable that. We're also seeing customers asking about microservices as they switch their application architectures away from existing monolithic and end-tier applications to highly distributed, componentized, services-based apps. On the infrastructure side, we're seeing a lot of interest in Linux containers, driven by the popularity of Docker as an alternative to existing virtualization technologies. Containers can be a key enabler to DevOps and microservices. Finally, we're seeing customers increasingly wanting to deploy their applications across a hybrid cloud environment. Up next, I'd like to introduce Kent Hua. Kent is a senior solution architect at Red Hat. He focuses on teaming with strategic Red Hat partners, leveraging OpenShift Container Platform and JBoss middleware technologies to build out solutions for their customers. Kent has been in the industry for over 15 years, working with customers and partners delivering application solutions across the enterprise. And Kent is a valuable resource to the LI9 team, and I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce Kent and hand over the presentation to him.
With that, when we talk about digital transformation, evolution is impactful not just on the IT side, but on the business side as well. We look at the application aspects because those need to change as we deliver differently, the way we integrate the applications themselves, as Rob mentioned, the platform itself, and of course the underlying infrastructure. As we talk about DevOps, a lot of it impacting the organization itself, the different roles within the organization, within IT, within the business, and being more agile and more responsive. So as part of that, digital transformation requires evolution in a lot of these categories and these areas that we speak of. So our focus today, as Rob had pointed out, was around containers. When we talk about containers themselves, we know some have heard of them as Docker, some have probably used it in the past in other platforms such as Solaris. But when we look at containers themselves, depending on the role that you leverage the containers, you see them in different facets. In the organization, on the operational side, you see a way of being able to box an application process into a single tangible component that I can spin up and spin down at my leisure. They're lighter than virtual machines. I don't have to spin up the entire guest operating system to spin up my application. It's just the process that resides within my system. And I can have it portable across different environments. On the developer side, I see it as a different way of being able to package my applications, all of its dependencies, so that when I do hand it over to operations, everything is all intact. I don't have to depend on dependencies as it relates for my application to function. Albeit I may need to, as I look at microservices, how the dependency is on my, how I can deploy in a different environment,
Sunil?
as opposed to being able to deploy across different environments, whether that be through development, tests, operations. I can get that in seconds. I can get environments quickly. And of course, I can easily access my shared containerized components. So containers themselves can be an evolution as part of the application development. They can help the efficiency for development as well as the operational side, but also when we talk about the agile components, the automation for us to move a quicker way to be able to deploy our application changes, new functionality, capabilities to our end users, whether that be internal to the business and or to our end customers, to be able to move faster from development to production. At the end of the day, if code is not in production, it really provides very minimal value to the organization as well as the overall teams that have been put in place to put it together. The lasting aspect I mentioned earlier that relates to operations but also helps developers is that I have within containers the ability to deploy across multiple types of providers, that whether being physically on-prem, virtually, private, or public cloud. So I have different facets as I deploy these types of containers. Containers themselves also help me with continuous integration, continuous deployment, but also the flow, and then be able to deploy that, as I mentioned earlier, across different facets within the cloud, whether that be on-prem within your physical data center, virtually, or of course in the public or hybrid cloud, and being able to integrate integration together and be able to facet different components of that and be able to kind of say, I have application, I don't really care where it resides, and have functionality to be able to run it accordingly. So when we talk about containers themselves, we talk about the process changes, digital transformation, and DevOps itself. We need a platform to help us provide self-service to our end users on the development side, polyglot language, meaning multiple languages, not just a single language, be able to facilitate that, especially as we move towards microservices, being able to support different types of language environments, different sorts of development styles, and of course, being able to automate that, giving them an opportunity to collaborate. On the operational side is a platform that gives them the ability to work with standards-based, be able to scale accordingly, open source technologies, and be able to have the comfort that from a security perspective that the platform is able to help handle and manage a lot of those aspects around containers that are being deployed all the way from development all the way to production. When we talk about security is the underlying operating system itself. OpenShift Container Platform is deployed on either Red Hat Enterprise Linux or Red Hat Enterprise Linux Atomic Host. And as a part of that is the underlying Docker container runtime that is part of the operating system itself. It's deployed within the operating system, and that essentially becomes our enterprise container host. The next step is orchestrating our containers, albeit containers are great working on a single machine, but normally in production environments, I'm going to have more than one, but also have it communicate to other machines as well. Kubernetes helps us manage that container orchestration and cluster management of our underlying containers. But when we talk about OpenShift itself, is being able to add areas that Kubernetes may or may not address at this current moment, which is where OpenShift helps on the networking side, providing a software-defined network so that you can manage the significant number of containers that you will be spinning up or managing or having to deal with, the underlying networking between the nodes themselves, the storage. I can spin up a lot of containers, but at the end of the day, to provide some value, I need to work with some data, albeit possibly persistent and or data that is transient throughout my various services, but I do need to deal with the storage facet. All these images that I'm working with when I'm dealing with containers, I need to be able to register them, put them in a directory, So with an OpenShift container platform, it's a Docker registry to allow me to deploy these container images. Another component is being able to handle logging and metrics. So I have a lot of containers that are being spun up. I need to be able to have visibility into groups of containers, specific containers that are related to a specific project. So OpenShift deploys a EFK stack, Elasticsearch, Fluentd, and Kibana stack to allow you to search through logs that run through your environment. Metrics, CPU, memory, network I/O, being able to surface that information, what is the consumption, and then historically being able to pull that so I can see what is the utilization, how do I perform chargeback, how do I have showback, how do I know how much of my environment is being used, possibly on a per project basis, on a container image basis. And the last piece is being able to know that I have that security, not just on the underlying operating system itself, but being able to know that I have role-based access control as it relates to the projects that I'm working with, that one project may not be able to see another project. All of those, and at the end of the day, is being able to have infrastructure management. So when we look at the OpenShift architecture, it is really a series similar to those that may be familiar with the Kubernetes architecture, is we have a series of nodes. Those are our working nodes. And the master. The master is the coordinator. It provides us with our API, our data storage for our configuration. How do I schedule my pods? And of course, the health of our overall cluster, and then the scaling of it. Another component that we deal with is when we talk about storage, is another option is having to deal potentially as we have more hyper-converged type of solutions currently in virtualization, but also being able to look at it from a container native storage perspective, is being able to have our storage right where our applications reside. So from within the Red Hat offering is Gluster storage, the ability to have Gluster run inside as a container and be able to share and provide persistence for your various application containers. As we look upon the OpenShift container platform, is the facets that it provides from a usability perspective, but also from a developer aspect. Is one, being able to provide self-service. A user can come in and sign on and say, hey, I want to deploy a project, whether that be on Node.js for JavaScript, or I have a database that I need to deploy of MySQL or MariaDB. These are available within the catalog as part of OpenShift, and these allow you to use, these images are maintained by Red Hat, applying security patches, and these can, from a deployment automation perspective, if Red Hat patches and you allow it as part of your application, if the cluster detects a change in that image, it can roll out that patch for you. The overall rebuild your entire application as part of deploying a new image with those security fixes intact. Build automation comes into play as well. We'll go into a little deeper into that, as well as application lifecycle management. Being able to have CI/CD built into OpenShift is Jenkins. That allows you to perform some CI functionality, but also OpenShift as a first-class citizen with the Jenkins OpenShift Sync plugin to provide feedback between OpenShift and Jenkins, whether running inside your cluster or if you have an existing CI tool, being able to integrate that as well. So within OpenShift is also a traditional set of stateful as well as microservice-based applications. Red Hat has built-in container images, not just of the tools that I mentioned earlier, but also the JBoss middleware portfolio available as images that can run in OpenShift as well. I mentioned earlier about the middleware portfolio, but that doesn't mean that you can't run images that you find on Docker Hub or from our ISVs that provide solutions. So all of those can run on top of this OpenShift cluster environment. As we transition to, I mentioned a lot about developers, is from an OpenShift offering is being able to have a solution called OpenShift I/O, which is being able to provide planning tools from end to end. If I have a concept of an application, OpenShift can help you guide from an opinionated approach of how I want to develop my application. It will coordinate. It will have Kanban boards for you to be able to move tasks and be able to track the tasks that are occurring, and also be able to collaborate as well as integrate with a GitHub repository, for instance. So this is an end-to-end integration from a developer tool perspective. It's another opportunity from Red Hat being able to provide that more opinionated approach as you move towards development experience. OpenShift I/O, I mentioned earlier, being able to plan and track your projects. So from inception all the way to deployment, OpenShift IO provides you with the facility of being able to create and build your application, provide you with a container-based IDE, so a web-based IDE. So look at it from the perspective of I deploy an application and I have particular bug fixes that I need to apply as part of this application. With this environment, I can spin up an Eclipse chain environment in the web with all the dependencies already in place, and I can immediately begin working, especially with developers who have to switch context, switch different applications. This is very helpful in being able to provide an environment that's ready to help and work and be able to solve that particular issue at hand, whatever that bug or issue may be. From a deployment perspective, at the moment, OpenShift IO deploys onto OpenShift Online, which I'll get into as far as the different types of deployment options that are available within OpenShift itself. I mentioned earlier about building automation. So from an OpenShift perspective, I have OpenShift IO to help facilitate that. But if I don't have, and I have all of these tools already in place within my organization, OpenShift can help me deploy my source code. If I just have a source code in a repository somewhere, I can point to it, and OpenShift can pull the proper image to be able to build, deploy, and run your application. If I have a pre-built application, I can point it to a binary, pull the correct image, and then be able to deploy that as well. And lastly, as I mentioned earlier, if I have container images from my own repository or registry, from Docker Hub, or from Red Hat, I can deploy those container images and run them on OpenShift as well. When we talk about OpenShift, we have varying different offerings and different ways to get involved and be a part of the community itself. OpenShift Online is available as a quick way of being able to deploy, if I have a quick container application, deploy and run it and kind of see how the platform functions and actually may be able to use it as from a viable perspective. Commons is a way for, as a gathering for individuals who have passion towards OpenShift or container technology and working together and collaborating to build solutions. OpenShift Origin is the upstream project as it relates to OpenShift. So from here we can see Origin is a culmination of different projects that result in the upstream community, and these result in the technologies that we have on the right-hand side. We have Container Platform, which is usually deployed on-prem and or in the cloud, a public cloud provider, managed by you, the end user. Operation teams, you will own it, you will run it, and you will use it as normal. OpenShift Dedicated is an offering that's managed by Red Hat and then be able to provide it to you as a SaaS offering, essentially. I log in, it's managed by Red Hat, I use the projects, I deploy, I create my applications. Issues that occur, underlying runtime aspect of OpenShift is being managed by Red Hat for you. These are deployed on the public cloud, today at the moment on either Google Cloud Platform or AWS. OpenShift Online is a multi-tenant deployment, as I mentioned earlier, a quick way to get started and being able to deploy your applications quickly on OpenShift Online itself. When we talk about the container platform, we provide a series of reference architectures to allow you to deploy into the various cloud providers or on-prem on VMware or OpenStack, for instance, and being able to have a reference architecture to point to as you deploy the environment. When we talk about OpenShift Online, I mentioned an opportunity to quickly get started in the starter package, or as you move more towards being able to have more access and more resources, there is a quick starter package for $50 a month of being able to leverage OpenShift Online in a more collaborative sense as well as deploy additional projects. I mentioned earlier OpenShift Dedicated is a single tenant managed by Red Hat for you as the end user, and you have access to varying different types of resources provided to you. The entire cluster is deployed and managed by Red Hat. Patches, all those facets are being managed by Red Hat. If I need additional resources, I have options to increment capacity, whether that's through application nodes themselves, if I need additional CPU memory, if I need additional storage, and or if I need additional network I/O. I have those options if I need to increment capacity. The OpenShift Dedicated itself is the ability to have a environment that's managed for you and be able to deploy it accordingly and use it as you need and can be used in various cloud providers. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Rob and he's going to tell you about some more LI9 offerings around OpenShift Container Platform.
Hey, thanks, Kent. Appreciate the dive that you've done, very high level on the OpenShift platforms. And Kent's done a great job of identifying the three platforms: the container platform, dedicated SaaS, and the online OpenShift platforms that are available. And again, this was a very high level explanation of those platforms that are offered by Red Hat. And what at LI9, what we'd like to do is partner with you to determine, which OpenShift platform is best suited for your organization. With our experienced engineers and the availability of our fully installed demonstration environment, we've positioned ourselves to help with your proof of concepts and in the decision-making process. I know we're coming to the end of the webinar here, and I'd like to open it up to some questions. I haven't, Kent, I just want to review a couple of things that you've had here. What languages are currently available for the OpenShift IO developer tools?
At the moment, it is mainly focused around microservices and event-based types. So we're looking at potentially Spring Boot, BertX, which is another event-based runtime. Node.js is in technical preview, as well as Wildfly Swarm. So really focusing around the microservices technologies, but being able to use that in your platform in OpenShift IO as well.
Excellent. With OpenShift Dedicated, do I have access to the underlying OpenShift instances?
You don't have access to the underlying instances. I mentioned earlier, OpenShift Dedicated is managed by Red Hat. So you treat it as an underlying SaaS offering, essentially, or an offering that's available to me. I have access to it over the web browser. I have access over command line to operate and work on the cluster, but the underlying instances themselves and being able to manage it, you wouldn't have access to that because Red Hat needs to manage it, have a consistent environment, and also be able to know when patches need to be applied, that you do have some visibility as well as consistency as the patches are being deployed.
Excellent. I have another question here. Are the containers cloud native?
The containers themselves are, when you say containers, I guess it would be a follow-up question, but I'll address it two different ways. One, the containers themselves, Red Hat provided container images. They are ready to run on OpenShift, and it can be run on the cloud or on-prem or within your own private cloud. Now, that all comes down to the overall containers themselves, which usually are cloud native, but that depends on the container images and the dependencies themselves if you get them from third parties.
Excellent. I just want to maybe follow up a little bit on the OpenShift Online. Do you know how long the OpenShift Online has been available to customers, and is there any kind of trending and adoption that you're seeing from an online perspective?
What we've had in the previous version of OpenShift Online version 2, we had over 1 million projects that users were using and deployed and live and running, and that's been going on for years. We recently just made our transition into what we know of today as OpenShift Container Platform using Docker Kubernetes. We rolled that out earlier this year, second quarter of this year, to a technical preview and being able to have adoption of users that are using the new platform that I just presented today. So there's definitely growing adoption. And there is some time. I mean, you can go and sign up right now, but it may, depending on the region that you select, it may take some time for your instances to spin up, for instance. So there's definitely high demand for both OpenShift Online as well as OpenShift IO. OpenShift IO, you'll have an immediate wait list.
Okay. Excellent. I know I haven't seen any questions in the chat window as we're getting kind of towards the end of the session here, but I've unmuted everybody here and like to open it up to any questions that people might have that are currently attending the webinar. All right, we have a group of well-educated OpenShift individuals on the line. I love it. It's awesome. Well, with that, I'd like to, again, again, introduce myself. My name is Rob Alvarado with Li9 Technology Solutions. One of the things that, again, Li9, we'd like the opportunity to partner with you and work with you on deciding which OpenShift platform is right for your organization. We can do that in many different ways. We have fully certified and accredited engineers on staff to help you work through these decisions. We also have the availability of our demo environment that has a fully installed OpenShift platform. We have other products available as well, Red Hat CloudForms, so that you can see comparisons between CloudForms and VMware. We have Red Hat Enterprise Linux, Red Hat Virtualization available in this environment, so that we have all the tools available for you to establish a proof of concept, take that back to the decision makers, and move forward with a fully implemented Red Hat environment. Also, Li9 and Red Hat are partnering up with some additional events coming up. We'll be more than happy to reach out to the attendees of this meeting. We have a OpenShift Live WebEx with Gene Kim. For those that are familiar with the Phoenix Project, Gene Kim, the author of that book, and a wonderful speaker on DevOps platform. We have a live WebEx with him on September 19th. And we're also partnering with Red Hat on an OpenShift DevOps workshop coming up in October, an Ansible workshop in October, and following at the end of the year in November, a microservices agile integration workshop. We'll be more than happy to reach out to all of the attendees to provide invitations to these events. And again, we look forward to partnering with you on your OpenShift implementation. I'd like to thank everybody for attending, and please look at some of the solutions we have by taking a look at li9.com, and we'll be reaching out to you soon. Thanks everybody for attending.
Thank you.